Now, we've all heard people say, don't make a mountain out of a molehill. Haven't we all heard that? And don't we all know someone who has just completely flown off the handle and overreacted to something that we thought was relatively small? Can't we all remember times where we've flown off the handle and overreacted to things that even a day or a week later we were like, I don't know why that was such a big deal to me? I want you to know that I think one of the most powerful lessons that we can learn as individuals on our path to personal development and developing personalities that will attract the right kinds of people into our lives to increase our effectiveness and increase our likability and all of those things, to make every area of our lives better, in our finances and our relationships, our spirituality, all those things. I think one of the greatest lessons is the lesson of perspective. To understand that whatever it is you're going through right now, although it may seem like a huge deal when you're in the moment, from the perspective of this year, probably won't seem like that big of a deal. From the perspective of this decade, might not seem like a deal at all. And from the perspective of your entire lifetime, you probably won't even remember it happened 5 or 10 years from now. Even massive life-changing events, right? Like divorces or the death of family members or things that are very, very tragic and should be taken very, very seriously, when looked back upon 10 or 15 or 20 years later, in many cases, we look back as individuals and we think, that actually turned out better for me because I was then able to move on and do this or do that, or that's something that needed to happen to me so that I could learn this lesson, right? These types of things. And so what I want you to know is that if you can have that perspective in hindsight, here's what you can do. You can have that perspective in the current moment of now. So when you're looking at your circumstances right now, you can say to yourself, in a year or two, how will I feel about this? And if the answer is, I probably won't care, then why should you care now? Isn't that interesting? And what we're finding is that people that have this kind of long-term perspective have something which is known in the industry as emotional maturity. And emotional maturity is that they've done studies on successful people in every industry, in every walk of life, and in every type of vocation and job and business, and they have found that the number one factor that determines people's success is not how smart they are. And it is, to some degree, who they know, but even more important than that, by the time that people get to senior level executive type positions, or by the time people get to leadership positions in companies where they have certain size organizations or certain titles within organizations, what they've determined is that people at those levels typically have very similar levels of intelligence, of IQ, and they have similar levels of influence with their peers, and they have relationships with people that are about the same caliber. So what's the difference? Why do some people rise to really, really high levels of achievement, where others kind of, stag out around the middle management, upper management level? And the answer is not smarts, and it's not necessarily contacts. It's emotional maturity. It's the ability to maintain an even keel. It's the ability to take a situation and instead of fly off the handle or overreact or have a knee-jerk reaction to something, instead, it's the ability to have perspective and to say to yourself, in the big picture scheme of things, is this a big deal or a little deal? And even if it's a big deal, how will I feel about this in a year? How will I feel about this in 5 years or 10 years? How could this possibly be something good for me that may open a door or teach me a lesson or provide me with some sort of insight that I've been needing? See, that kind of perspective is what gives people that nice, even keel that everybody enjoys being around. Because see, someone who is very even keeled like that is dependable. You know where they stand with them. You know what you're going to get from them. You're never surprised. Someone who flies off the handle and someone who is reactionary to almost everything that happens in their life, someone without that long-term perspective that tends to view everything in the moment of right now as a huge deal, people walk on eggshells around those individuals. Have you noticed? They always try to keep them at an arm's length because you never know when you're going to get both barrels right to the face. But when people have a nice, even keel And that is born of long-term perspective. They are the kind of folks that are natural leaders. They're natural influencers. People want to be around them. And that is what creates success in your life, because it's all about relationships. It's all about people wanting to be around you. It's all about your likability. It's all about your ability to influence. And if the most important factor in your ability to influence, which ultimately affects your success, is your emotional maturity, then how important is it to get some? It's immeasurably important. But that emotional maturity is born of a long-term perspective. So ask yourself, how will I feel about this in a year? How will I feel about this in 5 years? And if you can have that perspective in hindsight, you can have it in the moment of now. And you can change your emotional maturity, and you can begin to change the results in your life. Go out there today, guys. You know what to do.